पानी का इंतज़ाम यही है?
हाँ बोतल होगा ना सब।
हाँ ठीक है, मैं तो मेरा तो यहीं पे है, यहाँ से उठा के पी लूँगा। ठीक है।
कॉपी करने के लिए इसमें है क्या देखना? 3 पीपीटी है आपका तो नहीं है इसमें?
है।
3 पीपीटी।
हाँ ये है तो सही। एक
हाँ
मिनट।
तो कर
नहीं नहीं, मैं देख के देखता हूँ कि जो मैं चाह रहा हूँ वो है कि नहीं है।
ठीक है
कि नहीं, इसमें प्रेजेंटेशन मोड होता है ना।
कर देता हूँ मैं।
हाँ प्रेजेंटेशन मोड होता है जिसमें टेक्स्ट भी आता है, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड भी आएगा। हाँ वो दिखाइए, क्योंकि मुझे टेक्स्ट से देखना पड़ेगा। नहीं इसमें
अभी
नहीं
वो
है।
करवाता हूँ, हो जाएगा, टेक्स्ट आ जाएगा। उसमें कर दो
स्लाइड शो में।
हाँ नहीं
मुझे जो प्रेजेंटेशन मोड होता है जिसमें नेक्स्ट स्लाइड भी दिखाई देता है और टेक्स्ट भी दिखाई देता है।
टेक्स्ट भी देखना।
हाँ हाँ ये ठीक है।
आपको यहाँ भी दिखाया देगा।
हाँ ठीक है, तो अभी ये
अभी वहाँ सब करना, स्विच करना पड़ेगा।
जब आप आएंगे तब
तब आप
स्क्रीन
उस
पर
वक्त मुझे ये वाला चाहिए
हाँ ऐसे ही रहेगा।
है ना।
मैं करके रखूँगा।
हाँ ठीक है।
आपका सेकंड है ना?
हाँ सेकेंड।
ठीक।
evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are here for the session on maritime heritage, shipbuilding legacy. India has a rich and vibrant maritime heritage that dates back to ancient times. The country's strategic location at the crossroads of the Indian Ocean has made it a hub of maritime trade and cultural exchanges for centuries. Indian maritime history is a testament of ingenuity, courage, resilience of our people. This lecture series is an attempt to touch upon maritime knowledge relevant to the growth and development of our country. This has been curated by the Center for Maritime Economy and Connectivity, established at Research and Information Systems for Developing Countries, RIS. Our younger audience would be happy to know that RIS was set up as a leading policies research center in 1983, and the organization celebrated its 40th year anniversary very recently. It's my great pleasure and honor to welcome the esteemed guests today. We are delighted to have luminaries amongst us. Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan, ex-former Secretary, Ministry of Port, Shipping and Waterways, ex-member of the National Shipping Board, is here to grace this occasion. Along with him, we have other luminaries. We have DG RIS, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, Professor Mohanty from RIS, two illustrious speakers from the Navy, Commodore Vineet Tiwari, who's been former Principal Director of Warship Design Bureau, which has carried the legacy Warship Design Bureau has carried the legacy of shipbuilding post-independence era, and he will be enlightening the younger audience about the growth of shipbuilding in India post-independence. We also have Commodore Ajay Agrawal from the Maritime History Society, and he's had an illustrious career. So I'll not be standing between you and the illustrious speakers, but we also have a lot of young audience. The program is also being streamed live on YouTube on the RIS and India Habitat Center channels, and we are extremely privileged and happy that India Habitat Center has supported this initiative with RIS. So before I start the proceedings, I will also, with the permission of luminaries, request Mr. Suneet Tandon to say a few words. He's been the cornerstone and main force behind so many other activities at India Habitat Center, and he found time to come here today. But he's been taking his personal interest about this new series, and that's why this has begun today. So Mr. Tandon, a few words from you.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Shrotriya. You know, it was only a few weeks ago that Dr. Shrotriya came to me with this proposal that we should have a series on maritime history of India and maritime contribution as well as the future. And I was immediately struck that why has such a series not been done before? I'm so glad you brought this to us, and I'm so glad that you're taking up the challenge of having this series, a monthly series we hope, which will also be streamed worldwide from this Casuarina hall here at India Habitat Center. Somebody was thanking me for, Professor Chaturvedi, DGRIS was thanking me for having it organized these programs here. I told him that we are just the facilitators. We have the hardware in terms of the halls, but you are the ones who provide us with the software. So this software of these wonderful lecture series, and RIS particularly has been instrumental in really supporting us with the STIP lectures, which have a long and distinguished history, the science, technology, innovation promotion lectures series that we have done along with other institutions. So thank you very much for starting off yet another new series, which is, I'm sure, going to contribute to our knowledge and awareness regarding India's contribution to the maritime universe over time and in the future also. And I'm sure it's going to be very important for us. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome you all to this series and wish it all success in future. Thank you.
So, may I now request the distinguished panelists to take chair. Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan, sir. Professor Chaturvedi, Commodore Ajay Agarwal, Commodore Vineet Tiwari, please. We start the proceedings with the welcome address from Director General RIS. Many of the world knows him, but just for the young researchers and young population and audience who are connected to us online, may I request you to allow me to say a few words. Right.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Kshatriya, for conceiving this idea and for taking it forward. So good evening, everyone, and very warm welcome to this new initiative of CMEC, which is going to take the task forward in terms of how none other than the chair of the session, Mr. Ranjan, envisaged CMEC, the role that it should play. So there are two who are sort of shaping CMEC and shaping this lecture series. So thank Dr. Kshatriya and thanks Mr. Ranjan for thinking of having such a center here which should think of maritime economy and connectivity. Somehow we do not interconnect the naval strength of the country, the economic muscle that we have to have, and also the geopolitics within which the naval commands and the wider architecture within which our forces in oceans work. And above that are the ships that are carrying our business, that are carrying our hopes and aspirations for wider share in global trade. And somehow India has paid much more attention on land and much less in ocean. Thanks to government's attention and focus in last 10 years, consistent efforts have been made to develop ports and the connectivity that is needed through ports. At RIS, we are focusing on sustainability component, the dimension of how oceans would be healthy. So for last 7 years, we have a very vibrant program on blue economy, which is about oceans and SDG goal 14. We have been sort of led by Professor Monti, have been trying to apply our economics and trade to it, because RIS is largely a trade institute, and we thought that we should apply trade to the idea of blue economy and bring in sustainability component in the larger framework. And then we thought that it is ending up in the shipping, and then we met Mr. Ranjan, and actually we ended up in shipping. So the lines are so much blurred that sectoral focuses are no more working. And just before we began, Mr. Ranjan was mentioning that RIS is into so many things. So to those who are from some distance, they see multiple activities, but those who are inside the furnace, they just see it all red. So this is something which is sort of boiling in terms of how India should look at the new century. That is to take us forward. The idea of Asian sanctuary, Indian sanctuary, the rise of our strength, but it is also important for us to see the history, to get motivated. I'm so delighted that Commodore Tiwari and Commodore Agrawal have agreed to join us and enlighten this wider effort. Commodore Samadar I don't see here, but yes, yeah. So we are at RIS trying to see the whole shipbuilding activity. What kind of finances are required? What kind of resource mobilization is needed? How Ministry of Finance, particularly Department of Economic Affairs, should assign the infrastructure status to shipbuilding so that more credit can be raised. And we just finished some preliminary calculations, and we find that in last 6 years, the credit that shipping sector has got or has generated from the banks is just 7,000 crores, which is just nothing to get into the action as far as shipbuilding is concerned. And this is when India had a huge legacy and huge strength in the past on this. During colonial phase and subsequent sort of lack of attention of the government, we missed out on this huge sector and huge opportunity. I'm sure this lecture series would bring out several multiple issues that CMEC is going to work on that would bring in trade, investment, technology and finance, all the four. Trade, investment, technology and finance, all the four issues related to shipbuilding, shipping sector per se, and also above all, as I said in the beginning, the dimension of sustainability. So I'm keenly looking forward for this lecture, and I once again very warmly welcome all of you here. Thank you.
We have with us Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan. Sir, at least allow me to say a few words. Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan has over 37 years of experience of multimodal connectivity, facilitating trade by ease of doing business and policy making. Dr. Ranjan was the chairman National Shipping Board, as I said, and he's also served as the Secretary, Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways. That is, when he was at the helm, he conceived about this Center for Maritime Economy, and we are grateful to you, sir. He has assured new PPP model concession agreements, developing ports. You have seen how our ports have grown. He's also conceived the Maritime India Vision 2030, the action plan on logistics, infrastructure, shipping, blue economy, etc. He has also been instrumental in many important projects in other ministries. He's been the chairman of National Highway Authority of India, Secretary, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, and Additional Secretary and Financial Advisor in the Ministries of Road Transport and Highways and Shipping during the period 2016 to 2020. He's also served as Chief Secretary of Tripura with ground level experience of handling transportation and connectivity challenges. The Border Roads Organization was restructured during his tenure as Joint Secretary, Ministry of Defense, and many such initiatives have taken place. He is an alumni of IIT Kanpur, MBA from Faculty of Management Studies, Delhi University, MPhil in Economics from University of Glasgow. Dr. Ranjan sir also holds a PhD on the impact of information technology use from IIT Delhi. May I now request you, sir, to say a few words.
I got it. How do you get the full screen? Your full screen. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you very much. I am indeed thankful to Dr. Shrotriya for the kind introduction. At the outset, I also like to thank Dr. Sachin Chaturvedi for getting the whole thing started. And having the center in Delhi, I think, was required because the larger policy issues which get decided, there the importance of the seas and the oceans, I suppose, has to be better understood by people around here. And therefore, a center like this and getting the series started is equally important to get our youngsters enthused. While we had the Maritime India vision and so on and so forth, the top-down kind of initiative sets the platform, but it's the bottom-up, all the stakeholders getting together, the youngsters and all the stakeholders getting inspired and getting into the act. That is what is going to end in delivery. And therefore, this series, which Dr. Shrotria, along with Dr. Sachin Chaturvedi, which has been started with their initiative, I'm sure is going to go a long way, and I would like to thank them. That was one of the objectives for which the entire setup was conceived, and we have made a great beginning. When we talk of the Indian maritime heritage, it indeed goes down to the Harappan times, and even before that. The first slide which I put here shows the seals which people have seen, which are these boats, and you have these directional birds. If you look at the legacy of the Indian civilization, starting from Harappa, the picture that you see there was part of the first publication which Dr. S.R. Rao, who was part of the excavation team of Harappa, he picturized that. And that is a place where the oldest dock was excavated, which is not less than 4,000 years old. And now we are putting up a national maritime heritage complex there to be able to recreate the kind of maritime heritage that we had at that point of time. In this maritime heritage complex, there are going to be galleries showcasing the various maritime heritage things that we need the youngster to know about. And therefore, the challenge is to be able to unearth all that. And starting from this session, we recently had the Indian Maritime Heritage Conclave on the 11th of December here. Again, the effort was to get all the academics, everyone who has any interest in the area, to get involved and look at the kind of heritage we had all over the country at various points of time. We know of what is the general narrative. There is far more than that which people need to be made aware of. And a session like this is going to go a long way. Recently, for example, we had this book, Ahimsa by Devdutt Patnaik, which just come out. I saw it a few days back, which interprets the way the Harappan civilization flourished. It was not because of any kind of military power. They were essentially people who were actively engaged in trade in the entire region. 5,000 years back, a community, a civilization based on trade, in which people from the Indus Valley area interacted with the Arabs, the Romans, and the South Asians. And this is the kind of civilization, and the maritime connect which went along with it is something which we need to figure out, need to work on. The first seal which I showed you is just a depiction. There's, I'm sure, much more to it. This is a map which I pulled out from this book of Dr. Ravi Chakravarti, who was one of the early pioneer historians on trade of early India. Now here the locations have been marked at various points of time of Indian history, going back to pre-600 before Christ. Those black dots, and you find them spread all over, going all the way to the Middle East, to Egypt, and the Southeast Asia. You have the locations between 600 BC to 600 AD, and locations up to 1300 AD. Now, as you can see, before India, before the coming of the Portuguese, before the so-called New World was discovered by Columbus, it it is this part of the world which was central to world trade. And India was squarely placed in the middle of it. And therefore, any kind of maritime movement which had to happen necessarily had to touch our shores. That is the unique kind of a position which geography gave us. And as a consequence, the kind of maritime heritage which we've had over the years is something which needs to be unearthed. The narrative that we hear of is that we were a inward-looking kind of a civilization. Our people didn't go out, and therefore the colonizers did a great service of introducing us to the world, and it is post the Portuguese and the English that we started interacting with the world and started trading with them. This is the kind of narrative we get to hear, and that's the kind of understanding we have from our school textbooks, that Columbus was one of the greatest explorers and Vasco da Gama is the one who opened us to the rest of the world. So this is the understanding I had. And even in India, while I was Ministry of Shipping, we celebrate the National Maritime Day on the 5th of April. And that is the day in 1919, the first Indian-made vessel with Indian crew went to London in 1919, and we celebrate it as a National Maritime Day, being eternally grateful to the British for allowing our ship to go to London. But does it mean that we didn't have anything before that? And that was a starting point. And that is the kind of thing which gets embedded in our thought and in our understanding. But the reality is, India was the dominant maritime power till the 13th century. India was squarely in the middle of the maritime trade which used to happen, be it between China and Rome, between China and the Arabs, between the Chinese and the Egyptians, and everything happened via the Indian shore. And that is, and you see the kind of ports which we had on our shores, and this is the depiction of, again, from the same textbook, and they are all based on hard archaeological evidence. These are the kind of ports we had at various points of time, both on the eastern coast and the western coast, because anyone who wanted to do anything in the maritime world necessarily had to come to us. And that in turn was something which our people in various places were able to absorb, develop shipbuilding techniques, and each period, each region has a story for itself which needs to be explained and understood. There are publications for that, but unfortunately that's not part of the public discourse. I just put a few things here. For example, the Indus Valley, the seals I talked of, there are clear evidence of reed boats going all across. The shipwreck south of Sri Lanka, Govadia shipwreck, is again 1st century BC, which had a full load of iron ingots, which was being taken from our shores to the Arabian side, and then supposedly it was headed for the Roman Empire. The dhows which we have plying between India and Oman and so on and so forth have been things which have been there for at least 3,000 years in various shapes at various points of time. And the teak required for it and the coconut wood or the coir required for it was all sourced from India. It was not shipbuilding on Indian shores alone, but shipbuilding which happened in the Arabian world and other places was also made with things that we supplied. And these are kind of things which I think we need to understand. The literary references that we have in our texts, whether it's the Rig Veda or the Ramayana, Mahabharata, we have mention of the Swarna Bhumi, Swarna Deep, and so on and so forth. They were places with which we had active trade, and they were called Swarna Deep and Swarna Bhumi because our people benefited from that kind of a trade, and people who went there came back with gold. And I have a few slides to show that. So that's the kind of legacy that we have. And the Romans in the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea have gone ahead and marked out all those places. The Mauryan Empire, the Arthashastra, the Kalinga reached to the Vietnam, Cambodia, so on and so forth. So up till 13th century, the entire Southeast Asia, because of the traders, the religious preachers, were under our influence, and thanks to the Maritime Connect that we had. And it is because of the connect that we had, we still have the Bali Yatra, the Boita Bandhana festival, which is on the Vaishak Purnima day, which is celebrated in Odisha. And this festival is not celebrated in Odisha alone. It's celebrated in all those countries with whom we had trade relations 7,000 years back. The colonizers may have changed the narrative, but the cultural value system which people had still continues. And the same Boita Bandhana, where boats are floated in water on the Vaishak Purnima day, is done in India, is done in Sri Lanka, it's done in Myanmar, Cambodia, Vietnam. Even China has a lantern festival. So these are the kind of things which link all these together. And it is essentially the Maritime Connect which used to make it happen. And the boats on the eastern side, for example, the western side, we had the doors, which were smaller in size. The vessels on the eastern side, at various points of time, the number of sails, the kind of stern and the bow, etc., kept changing. But these are things which I am sure my learned colleagues who are going to talk about the shipbuilding are going to go in greater detail. I would leave that to them. So my summation is that while we talk of shipbuilding, the maritime naval power during the Cholas and the Marathas and so on and so forth is certainly very important. But the trade part of it and the soft power that went along with it and the reach that we developed because of it is something which is equally important and needs to be understood and needs to be showcased in the National Maritime Heritage Complex at Lothal, which is coming up, needs to be showcased in the North Block and South Block once they become the National Archaeological Archives, and the narrative needs to change. So the Westerners, they had the predilection to political events. They tried to ignore the kind of legacy that we had. The Gupta dynasty was called the Golden Dynasty because of, and you had these travelers coming, and they came by the land route into India and went through the sea route back to China. Yuan Sang took the sea route from here to Indonesia and then back to China. So the vessels used to ply on a regular basis. The Cholas, for example, the Srivijaya and the war which they had, and the kind of vessels which we took, the numbers and the other things are well known. And the National War College, for example, which Navy has a full statue and replicas of the kind of vessels which the Cholas had. So we have enough kind of evidence to show the kind of legacy that we had. The book by King Bhoja, 11th century, again goes at great length to describe the various techniques, various kinds of boats, various kinds of practices which our people used to follow. As I told you, while we had all this till 13th century, come the Portuguese, come the French, come the British, and the narrative which was doled out was somehow distorted, and the understanding which we now have is based on the kind of explanation which was given by these people to us, and they had done it with a purpose which served their interest. The fact that the Romans came and because of which India opened up from Alexander the Great is the kind of narrative that was doled out basically to justify their presence in our land. And even today, in some of our textbooks, we say that the 15th century was transformative period for India shipping and trade. Vasco da Gama's arrival opened up sea routes to India. This is incidentally from a recent brochure that I came across from a place which is trying to promote maritime heritage. So even despite the fact that we had a great legacy, we still have these phrases in our narrative, and young minds go by this. And as I told you, the National Maritime Day we celebrate based on an event of 1919, where our legacy is much more older and much more stronger before that. But fortunately, we have some recent texts, recent book, for example, this book, The Golden Road by William D'Alembert. Now, all this is hard fact. There are enough research papers available which are there to explain all that I mentioned before. But they have not been all put neatly together to counter the Western narrative. This book from William D'Alembert clearly brings out the kind of connect that India had, and India was squarely placed in the middle. He goes on to say that the Silk Route and so on and so forth that we hear about, and the great contribution that it made to civilizations, was only 5% of the actual movement, because movement of by caravans over land through the deserts of Central Asia is far, far more difficult than going the maritime way. So 90% of what happened between the Chinese and the Romans, or the Chinese and the Europeans at various points of time, essentially was maritime, and it went through the route which is shown here, again through our shows. So 95% of that actual so-called Silk Route trade at that point of time was through India, and it was Indian Maritime Connect, which was the actual Silk Road, and he calls it the Golden Road. And it is this narrative, I think we got to build on this, and our youngsters need to carry it forward. The research done by, for example, Navjot Lahiri, this about 20-30 years back, based on the resources and the kind of flows that used to take place, the entire area from Indus Valley to the various regions of the map, the way they visualized at that point of time, were connected. Now, I have put down the various stages, starting from Indus Valley to the Vedic age, the modern age, the kind of linkages that we used to have, the ports that we had, and the kind of publications from which these are based. Now, each of these periods, the trade and the linkages, need to be looked at greater detail. There was shipbuilding activity of its own kind. Period with the Cholas, Cheras, Pandavas, the Gupta Empire, the Cholas, and the monsoon winds is one thing which made us again a very uniquely kind of position in terms of sea voyage, because the monsoon winds in one direction brought all the vessels to our shores during the summers, and in the winters the very same vessel would sail by the monsoon winds to distant lands. So Boita Bandhana on the 1st of Baishakh is the time when the winds, the monsoon changes direction. It starts blowing from our shore towards Southeast Asia. So they use the monsoon winds. So when it comes to sailing boats of sizes which the Westerners could never dream of, we had it, because we had the timber, we had the choir, we had the technology, and we had the monsoon winds, which could carry it both ways, which was unique to our geographic location. And that is what contributed the kind of active maritime domination which India had. And all that worked for us until we did, as Dr. Chaturvedi would be happy to know, did things the sustainable way, using wind power, using those sail boats. We were dominant. And the very same sailboats, for example, when Gautam Buddha, he sent off his 2 children off to Sri Lanka, they started from Patliputra by riverine boats off to Tamralipti. From there, hugging the coast, they went to Sri Lanka. This is 3rd century BC. So the entire river system which our country is endowed with had the riverine boats. The entire coast had these boats which could take people across. This 3rd century BC, this is well known. All the Buddhist texts, the Jataka texts, talk at great length about these kind of expeditions which have taken place. And we did it the sustainable way. When the colonizers came, they switched to steam engines, the soft power and the trade which made it as a maritime dominant power in a more military kind of an environment with steam power and other things, and the systematic approach which they took to virtually wipe out what we had is what led to a situation where we had to start rebuilding things all over again. This is a map which everyone, I'm sure, in the maritime world knows of, which the Romans acknowledged, where the various, which is the text of the 1st century AD, where the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, where all the various ports on the Indian shore have been documented. And which understand. The in addition to the distortion of the colonials, unfortunately the archaeological evidence and other things are being just discovered. The Oc Eno excavations, which is about 30 years old in Vietnam, south of Vietnam, which dates back to 200 BC, has had Buddha statues discovered, the Indian scripts of that time having been found, Brahmi script literature having been found, and the route which used to happen was from the Indian shores, from Bengal, through the Kedah province of Malaysia, today's Malaysia, into the Mekong Delta, through the Mekong Delta to these places in Vietnam, and from there further on to China. So this is the kind of route which was there in the 1st century BC, and all these archaeological excavations clearly prove that. The connect that we had at various to various parts of the world is again well documented, be it the Mesopotamia around the Indus Valley time, the Greek and the Romans, the Arabians, the Persians, the Egyptians. The Southeast Asia was so-called Greater India up till 13th century. The Chinese, the Sri Lankans, the East Africans. I think I'm running out of time, so I'll quickly run through it. I leave the slides for people who are more interested in this. The Central Asians, etc., etc. Boita Bandhana, I have already mentioned, is something which is a cultural link which keeps us all engaged and clearly shows the kind of connect that we had. The colonials, and this is the kind of problem we ran into. With the British coming in, we had a number of acts which they came about. The first act which they came out was the Navigation Act of 1650, which made it mandatory for only the British registered ships to touch the shores of London. Non-UK ships could not go there. That was the Navigation Act. Starting with that, whatever shipbuilding, etc., which used to depend on the kind of trade which used to support it, started getting into a situation of slow death. And systematically, the kind of capabilities which we had till 13th century, because of the acts which the English came out with, the mercantile-minded gains which they wanted to have, resulted in this act. They also had the Calico Act, which banned import of cotton into England. Taken from England alone. Industry, the handloom textile industry of India, Bengal, Murshidabad, etc., which is known the world over. And we were the textile suppliers to the world. Spices, textiles, timber, which we gave, underwent a slow death. Similarly, from the colonies, they stopped taking finished goods. It was only the raw material which went into the factories of UK, and finished goods came the reverse way. So the ships UK made, the cargo, finished goods coming only from there to here, raw material going from here to there, resulted in the industry getting decimated, the shipping and the other things that we had getting marginalized. And by 1900, the entire area was essentially a British lake, with the Bay of Bengal starting from Skrota on the Arabian Sea till the Malacca Strait was all under the colonial control. But fortunately now the wheel has turned full circle. Indian Ocean is again becoming important. 60% of the world trade happens on our shores. India Pacific things which have been created, but it is for us to rediscover the kind of legacy and heritage that we had. We have two eminent speakers who want to talk about the things in greater detail. It is this maritime link that we need to recreate, and I would strongly recommend that the National Maritime Day that we celebrate, we rather do it on the Baishak Purnima Day rather than on the 5th of April, which virtually tries to erase the kind of things which happened before that. And while we do that, it's important that the distortions that we have in our maritime heritage gets corrected, and the National Maritime Heritage Complex that we're putting up and the future literature that we churn out, this seminar is going to go a long way. And with the series that is going to happen, each of these areas, each of these periods could be a focus area which would throw up a whole lot of treasure, which I think we need to cherish and build upon. I thank you all once again for giving me a very patient hearing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir, for a very, very passionate talk. And I'm sure the audience which has joined us online, a lot of young audience on YouTube, as well as a lot of young naval constructors here from your alma mater, IIT Delhi, from the Naval Construction Wing. I forgot to mention their presence here, and we are delighted to have you. I'm sure there'll be fire burning in your belly after Sir's talk, and the only way to take it forward is to regain our legacy by hard work and recreating what we had. So to take us through the journey of evolution of shipbuilding heritage from the Sindhu Saraswati civilization to later periods, types of ships built, which sir also talked about in brief, their design features, their navigation technologies, the material used, and their sourcing, and above all the role of shipbuilders and their social status in India. For all this, we have a very, very eminent speaker, Commodore Ajay Agrawal. There is nobody better than him because his PhD is on the subject of dhows, and he has recently submitted his PhD to University of Mumbai and on the legacy of dhow. So, sir, we are privileged to have you. Kindly.
Thank you very much. I'm slightly under weather, so you will be tortured slightly lesser. Okay, so now about 5,000 years back, on the coast of Tamil Nadu, one Mr. Subramaniam, we'll call him Mr. Subbu, because in the Navy all Subramaniams are called Subbus. So on a late Sunday afternoon, he was getting bored looking at his wife, and he was wondering what to do. So he decided to look outwards. And when he looked outwards, he saw this. This is a map, ulta map of, normally, we show the map north-oriented. Have a look at this map, south-oriented. So he saw these vast oceans, and he didn't know what to do with this. So he took his boat out and started sailing. So next 5,000 years, many Subbus have been sailing and creating a maritime history of India. So we will talk about it. Dr. Ranjan has already covered a huge part of it. So I'll go quickly on those parts and concentrate on the shipbuilding part. So this is the famous temple, taken from famous temple of Borobudur. And before that, let me thank RIS and CMEC for giving this opportunity on behalf of MHS. I would like to thank them for giving this opportunity for us to come and present our views here. So this has already been covered. These are various phases, and my idea of giving the phases was that unlike the colonial history, India has been involved in shipbuilding activities and shipping activities for nearly 5 millennium plus. There are a lot of references. These have already been mentioned, but here we have, I just compiled a few, because unless we have the references, the theories are not accepted. And here, in this case, I will take on the last one, the Yukti Kalpatar, little more details. So we have Indian scriptures, Rig Veda, Vriksha Ayurveda, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Dharma Sutras, Smritis, Jatakas, Arthashastra, Vodivats Vandana, Raghuvansh by Kalidas. All these have references to sea, to maritime activities that India was involved. Then we have cave stupas at Sanchi, which has depictions. Jagannath Puri temple, Borobudur, I have just shown you. Cave paintings in Ajanta, and incidentally, one of the paintings from Ajanta on which we are building a stitch ship, Dr. Sanyal is involved in it. I'll cover that also. Foreigners account, foreign travelers account, and that is a very important source, and the coins. So, he mentioned about, Dr. Ranjan mentioned about the Periplus of Erythraean Sea. This is one a very interesting book actually. This is a shipping log. It has been written by a master mariner, it looks like, because he describes the entire voyages that one could think of taking in the Erythraean Sea, which is Indian Sea. Indian Sea, it used to be called Erythraean Sea, Indian Sea, and of course the India got its name only through river Indus, where the Arabs used to call Al-Hind or Al-Hindis, and then it subsequently became India by the Europeans. This picture already been shared. This is a dock at Lothal, and indeed IMHC, which is being created very close to this. MHS is incidentally closely involved in creation of two galleries, and I'm happy to tell you that a full-fledged 60-meter long ship has been established there in a fully working condition to explain. It's an experiential gallery. Similarly, aircraft is also there, already established. All these have already been established. Of course, it will take some time. So this is all coming up at IMHC in gallery. Two naval galleries are there. So this is how our civilization has been. This is a seal again. You already seen it, which depicts the stitch ships. That is the beauty of this seal. And here I'll just show you some of the frescoes and sculptures which indicate the maritime heritage that India has had so far. Various parts of India. Okay, now the next comes is a very interesting period, Greco-Roman maritime trade period. This is again was shown, and that is the time where the gold from these two empires started pouring in heavily into India. Actually, Indian culture, India was very self-sufficient in all agricultural produces. It didn't require anything from outside. What it did not have were the materials, some of it, tin and things. So what they asked for balance of payment in gold only, and that's how the gold started moving from these Western empires into India. And if you look at what Pliny the Elder said, that full 100 million sastras, equivalent to almost 70,000 currency equal of that time, were withdrawn annually from Roman Empire to purchase useless Oriental products such as perfumes, unguents, and personal ornaments, silk, peacocks. These are the things that they used to be looked forward by the Europeans. And today there is an article written by Mr. William Dalrymple in Times of India that if one shipload could go through to Alexandria, of the items that has been found in the papyrus documents, one could become Elon Musk of Alexandria in one a day. So that is the kind of treasure that was moving on. This is the Greco-Roman trade movement, which you can see going to Alexandria and then onwards to Europe. Okay, so we talked about the trade which was happening to the west, but this is the period of where the maritime expeditions went to the east, and that is to spread. They were very benign expeditions of spreading Hinduism to Suvarna Bhumi, which was just mentioned, Champa, Siam, Java, Sumatra, Bali, and we still have the evidences in the form of Angkor Wat, Ayutthaya, a temple in Ayutthaya, and of course in Indonesia, other places. They still exist, and they tell you that yes, Hindu culture came here, and it flourished also. Mauryas, Andhras, Palvas, Pandyas, Cholas, all these people, they were the ones who, they were maritime powers. Chola period, the details are not very clear, of course, but this was the golden period, we can consider it, where the naval battle, see the thing is, Indian Ocean and this area was a very peaceful area for business, and that's how business progressed very well. This was a mere liberum kind of a concept where anybody could do business. The colonials powers, they tried to change this equation here on the waters, where they put the Karta system, the licensing system and things like that. And this is what was registered by the Indian traders and Indian kings. But there was never a power. But the details are very sketchy, so we still do not have full details to say what kind of ships they were and what kind of voyages they were taking. So the Baru's encryption of 1088 C refers to Marakalam. Marakalam is the ship made of timber, large one, and Kalam is another way of referring to ships. So these are the two references which are available of the warships. But what these warships, Kalam and Marakalams, were there, that is not very clear. Just one reference that I have been able to get, and that is the Vagini. Now, Vagini was a ship of 176 cubit. Cubit was the arm length, almost 22 inches, and length is and the breadth is 20. Now, the shipbuilders are sitting here. 1:7, 1:8 ratio is what we normally look at. But look at this beautiful ratio. This must be really vague. Vagini means name indicates very fast. So this must be a very good ship to build, because when I come to later period of Marathas and others, you will find that the ratio is not as good. But this indicates a very good one. And then of course Savaripatnam, developed port. We all have talked about spice port. Even Shakespeare refers to them in one of his plays as spiced Indian air. It is a phrase literally. It's just a pity that today the same air is suffering from the AQI problem. But it's okay as long as Indian spices were preferred by Europeans those days. Okay, so now I'll come to the main part, shipbuilding heritage. So the most primitive means of communication and transportation, Dr. Ranjan referred to the caravans part. Actually, caravans could carry only limited things, whereas the shipping you could carry much more. And then we have this shipbuilding started in the form of Kattumarams. Kattumarams is a Tamil word which means putting the logs together. Incidentally, the word catamaran that we talk about, that probably came from Kattumaram. So initially they sailed in riverine boats made of reed and later graduated to dugout dinghies from a tree trunk. We still have Jarawa tribe in Andamans and Nicobar. They use the dugout boats. We have Hodi, which were being constructed and are still being used in certain parts of Maharashtra and Konkan region, again dugouts. And of course, they ventured into the distant lands and distant seas with the stitched ships. So these were some ancient shipbuilding centers, Porbandar, Viraval, Kutch, Mandvi, and Sikka Bhavnagar in Saurashtra and Kathiawar coast, Dhabol, Ratnagiri, Devgarh, Malvan in Konkan coast. Mangalore, Hanavar and Karavar in Kanara coast, which is now Karnataka. Calicut, Bepur, Kasargod on Malabar coast. Tuticorin, Kadlur, Nagapattinam, Tamil Nadu. And then of course Lakshadweep and Andaman Nicobar Islands, they had their own shipbuilding industry. Now this is a very important book, Yukti Kalpataru, written by Raja Bhoj of Ujjain in around 12th century CE. This is the first reference of an art of shipbuilding in ancient India. This is a manuscript, it is there in Calcutta, one of the museums in Calcutta. It talks about caste of wood, 4 types of woods, 4 caste. It actually refers to Brahmin, Kshatri, Vaishya and Shudra, and they are classified based on whether the wood is light or heavy, whether it is soft or hard. And they have also talked about what wood should be mixed with which wood. Because if you make a wood, the entire ship of one wood, then it will work in a different way. And if you mix it, then it will work in a different way. Just imagine, the kind of knowledge probably they had gained. And of course, they said that Kshatriya wood, which was supposed to be light but hard, was considered to be good for the ocean going. And it gives all the details in great details, but it also prohibits mixing of certain types of woods. Otherwise, the wood would rot. And while the term used is it will bring bad luck, but I guess what it means is that the ships built in those on those parameters or by those materials would flounder at sea, and therefore they will bring bad luck. So the broad classification were basically 2, Samanya and Vishesh. Now Samanya were 10 types of ships. Dimensions were starting from 16 cubit to 120 cubits. Now remember 176 cubit Vagini in Chola period, whereas Yukti Kalpataru here now is talking about 120 cubit. Last 3 out of this 10, last 3 were not considered to be good because probably the dimension. Then there is Vishesh. Now Vishesh were the actually sea going. They were further divided into Dirghas. Dirghas means large ones, and Unnats. Unnat means high. Now what happens is if you build a very high ship, you can catch more air, but then the stability, the center of gravity moves up and the ship becomes unstable. And therefore either you put outriggers or you will have to change the dimensions. Those are the compromises. And Borobudur picture which I shared with you initially, it has an outrigger. So that means outriggers were also being used. So these ships were also, these were the larger ones, Unnat were the high ships. So then 3 types of cabins, Sarv Mandira, Mandira, Madhya Mandira and Agra Mandira. Those who know Sanskrit can make out that, Sarv means it was throughout the ship's deck, it was spread, the mandir, the structure, superstructure was there. Madhya Mandira means it was in the center of the ship, which was good for pleasure craft. And Agra Mandira was the naval, for the strong forecastle, which is even today, if you see, the warships have a good forecastle capability. That is for naval warfare. Now we are talking about 2,500 years back. This is the book which talks about it. And it talks about number of masts, up to 5 number of masts, main masts they are talking about. And it also gives a color scheme. Very interestingly, what kind of a color scheme you should follow based on the number of masts that are there. Okay, so now I just show you that how new technologies were being adopted. You look at these anchors. Now, when I saw for the first time one or 2 pieces of anchor, I was wondering how these anchors would have been used by our ancestors. They are in display in various maritime museums. So they used to put a toggle, and the toggle in one of the holes, and the other hole was used for rope. If you see the picture on the left side, you will an anchor has been kept next to it. This is a British anchor with a fluke, whereas on the slightly to the left of it is a wooden anchor with a toggle fitted in it. So the toggle will dig in as the strain came onto the stone, and that's how they learned and they improved. Then use of transom versus double-ended construction. Transom is a square cut in the stern part, whereas double-ended is basically a board which is pointed on the both the sides. So I'll cover these topics a little more, but just want to introduce you here, and then we'll move in this case. And then of course the rudder in lieu of stern oars. Earlier the steering used to be done, direction control used to be done by stern oar. The rudder were brought in by the Europeans. And use of iron anchor in lieu of stone anchor, which I just mentioned to you in this. So there were some problems in shipbuilding in ancient India. One thing is that only people of low caste were involved in shipbuilding activities. Even today, if you see the Wagairs and the communities, the Kolis, all those are considered to be lowly. Now the problem with that was that these people were generally illiterate and poor. So very little efforts went into learning the new scientific technologies or even improving the existing ones. Now this I realized when I was reading through the Sagres School of Navigation, which was started in 14th century in Spain. And incidentally, Columbus and Vasco da Gama probably came out of this same institution many years later, where all the new technologies were being put together and they were being refined, whereas we were not able to do that. Then, of course, there's a problem of proper record keeping. There is, even today, the shipbuilders of Salaya, Mandvi, Cheliar in Bepur, they don't have even one document to create a ship. They build the entire ship based on certain songs, certain poems which they have in their minds. They recite those poems, and those are the multiple factors poems which they have, and they build as per that. Now one of the good parts of that thing is that because they know only that method, the original ancient method of shipbuilding still exists in its purest forms. That is the beauty of but then we lost out on many other things. Then of course there was this secrecy of keeping written records for commercial reasons. Now in my research I found that even today the dhaus of Gujarat do not write correct documents even today, because they think that government will charge them taxes and things like that. When they say they are going to Oman, actually they may be going to Iran. And diesel smuggling and whole lot of things that goes on at sea. The sea is, unlike what we believe, that it's a very quiet place. No, it's bubbling with energy and activities. And dhaus are plying everywhere. I keep hearing every few days when I was doing my research, somebody has got caught in Iran, somebody has got caught in some other places, diesel smuggling, this smuggling, that smuggling, coal smuggling, stone smuggling, all that is going on. But that's how maritime activity progresses, because the smuggling of today is actually free trade by certain people. Okay, if you follow the free trade, then the concept of smuggling doesn't exist. So there was no standardization in construction and the nomenclature. All these things were, the problems where Indian shipbuilding did not establish itself or could not establish itself. Then we come to this period of Shilahara dynasty, and here there is a hero stone, Viragal stone as they call it. Whenever some soldier died, they would put a stone, hero stone, in his memory, and depict some of his battles. And here you can see, I personally visited this. That's why when I was posted in Mumbai, and here you can see that a sea battle is being fought. This is the 12th century. This is in Borivali West,
same Silahara dynasty. Next, I'll come straight away to Maratha shipbuilding. Now, Shivaji preferred smaller ships because he could, so that they could operate close to the coast. Whereas his future admiral, Kanoji Angre, he preferred building sturdier and larger ships that could be used in the deep seas. And therefore, a major change took place in Indian shipbuilding during this period. I'm going to cover a little more on this, more details on this. And this is a time when the European powers were exerting themselves in Arabian Sea, and then Marathas had no choice but to start building better ships so that they could fight the Europeans. And for this, he tried everything. The Marathas tried everything. They used the captured ship design. They borrowed engineers. They hired engineers, European sailors, to somehow be able to cope up with them. So let's come to Maratha Navy shipbuilding now. There were basically three types of ships: warships, merchant ships, and some dual purpose. In total, there were 51 classes of ships, but I will just cover some key ones. Yeah, okay. So let's look at this. This is a Doraibabu, which was 150 to 300 tons. Then we have Galbats, slightly smaller, but it has a facility to row. Then we have Pals. Now the Pals were the bigger ones, and they had a larger mast, 3-deck. Then there were very small ones called bomb ketch. They just carried 30, 40 soldiers. This is Batela, 30 crew, single sail. This is a modification of Latin sail. This is called Sati sail. It's got a cut. Then Machua, of course, fishing boat, which was converted to warships. Kotias, this is an ancient version of Dhaus, varying from 100 to 400 tons. Padav, then Fatimar, this was a dual purpose. Sibadis, a cargo vessel, about 150 tons, 2 masts. Then I will talk about Saurashtra region's shipbuilding. This is again Gujarat. Saurashtra region is a very evolved region where banks of river Rukmavati, a lot of shipbuilding took place. They have these Bhadala and Kharwas communities who are deeply involved. This is the satellite view of Rukmati river. You can see. This is just to show you the 2 yards. You can see on the picture on the left side, the ships are being built in a kind of a dugout dockyard. And once they sail out, those are filled up with water. This is a kind of a tree that is selected. I'll just quickly cover the shipbuilding process. This particular one is 14 feet dia. They are put in the river, and their seasoning is done. They are made to dry for almost a year. Sometimes steam is also used. They use very basic tools, hand tools, and that's how they work on it. This is the keel, main woods of keel is getting ready. The keel joint has been put, and a prayer is being offered. You can see the cut here. Another angle of showing you the kind of grooves that are made to make the keel. And then these are interconnected, and layer after layer is put thereafter. So this is the shell hull with the ribs. You can see the planking is just before planking. This is how the ribs were being fitted. The swaying of the plank is going on. Then the planking starts getting fitted. From inside, you can see the hull is taking shape. There is the planking technique. Either it could be done with a sewing method, or it could be nailing, or it could be nut and bolts. So all that is being depicted here. outer hull is being made ready, and then finally the boat is ready to launch. And this is the, you can see the okay. Anything? Now I'll come to Stitch Ship project. Now this drawing has been taken from Directorate of Naval Architecture. Thank you, Commodore Tiwari. I told you that a Stitch Ship project is being run by Ministry of Shipping and Culture, and Mr. Sanyal is involved in it. There are two masted ship. In this case, you can see the two masts. It involves, is being built in Goa, and recently in the Maritime Heritage Complex, Mr. Sanyal himself gave a presentation on this along with his team. And I was also there. This is how the ship will look. And the gentleman who is standing next to me is Mr. Babu Shankaran. He is the master shipwright. And when I interacted with him, I said, you have finally written down something so that the documents are made available. He said, no, that is not my job. Somebody else is doing it. I am still going by my memory, because that's how he has been trained and that's how he works. Okay, so now I'll quickly cover, how much time do I have? Should I? 2 minutes? Okay, so in that case, I will not be able to cover much. Okay, let me just quickly this thing. So there are various factors which do the design of the ship. One thing you must remember is the clinker built method, which was very popular in India, and the carvel built. The clinker is the overlapping of the planks. And the carvel was planks touching each other. Both the systems were in existence. Then, of course, the various types of woods, like teak was the best, then mango, jackfruit, undal, and then, of course, panaya was for the mast, and those kind of. Then comparison has been done, basic material with the foreign shipbuilding. Basic material was same, it's just that the sails were different, use of iron was done in different way, the gunwales were not there earlier. And of course, one interesting thing that I noted was that Indians were generally using inclined mast in shipbuilding, whereas the Europeans were building upright mast 90 degrees. Then this is why we have a stitched plank. Actually, it was a very good thing to have a stitched plank, because the ship hogging and sagging, there are two actions which takes place when the ship moves. That gets compensated because with the design that was with the sewing which was being done. Then it also resulted, in case something got the ship hit something, only a plank will get damaged, or the sewing will get damaged, and the entire thing will not get written off. So those are the benefit. But then of course it had a problem of seepage of water. Then double-ended construction, again it was criticized, but actually if you see, the double-ended construction suited us very well. In a narrow channel and all, you could move in either of the directions, if you had a double-ended boat. And then it was, if it is a clinker build where the planks were overlapping, it was very easy to change the planks. So, and of course hydrodynamic forces wise also this was better. But then transom had its own benefits. Then of course the shape of the sails which changed. Incidentally, the lateen sail was very common in Indian waters, which is a triangular sail, and then there was a small cut made to make it sati sail, which was a quadrilateral shape. Then the Europeans brought in the square sails, and that is how you see all the later picture of 18th century that way. Then of course the indigenous navigation, Navgati. Navgati basically comes from a Sanskrit word Navgati. Now the movement of boat, which became navigation, and that is how this word has come. Navigation has come, which is originally. And then of course they were master navigators, the ancient Indians, using the color of the sea, the fish, the bottom, All these things they could make out that they were closing the thing, and they also had knowledge of astronomy and astronavigation, and those details are also available. And especially Dr. Arunachalam has written a book on ancient maritime navigation. Those who are interested can look at it. It gives you very interesting details as to how the ancient Indians navigated. Okay, so there is a Pothi, the Roznama. Roznama, there, like if you remember, the Peripress of Erythraean Sea is a sailing direction log book of a master. Something similar has been done in India also. The earliest details that we have is around 15th century. It's available in Delhi in National Archive. It has been translated, some of it, and it also talks about the way the sailing is done. All those things are there. I'm running out of time, so will not cover. Sighting of birds at different times of the day, their chirping, all those things also gave indication as to what it was happening. There's a teak, somebody had asked me a question outside. The Indian teak, 3,000-year-old Indian teak sample is available even now in British Museum. Okay, and then we're talking about cloth, Indian silk. The Sugar Act was referred to. Basically, Indian, the molasses and all, they were controlled, the British controlled, so that Indian shipping could be strangulated. We imported tin, leather, glass, and other things, frankincense from Arabia, and we exported a lot of items. Money and system. This is a very important point. You must remember how British strangulated Indian economy and Indian shipping. They got the neck of this by suppressing the hundi system. The hundi system and the batta system, they were the backbone of Indian currency, and they were very popular all over the Indian Ocean. And British realized this, and then they worked on it and throttled it, and then captured it, of course. Okay, so this is the British shipbuilding in India, shipbuilding in British India. It's not part of Indian heritage, but we will quickly look at it. Shipbuilding in Mumbai, Bombay Marine, the Wadiyas, the great ships that they built, and that's how Indian teak became popular. Unfortunately, they chopped away all that forest of Chaliar River and Konkan coast. Today, it's very difficult to find good quality teak in those areas for shipbuilding. And that's one of some three famous ships: Minden, Cornwallis, and Trincomalee. Okay, now this again, SS loyalty has been covered here, and this brings us to the end. And this is a very interesting 10 rupee note, and you see at the time of independence, it has a depiction of a dhaw on the currency note. With this, I leave it to my next speaker to take on from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commodore Agarwal. Very, very interesting, and we are running short of time. We started late, but it is the onus on the last speaker to give Naugati to the complete show. So Commodore Tiwari is a very, very renowned professional naval architect, and he has steered the shipbuilding from Warship Design Bureau for many decades. So he's going to run us through the achievements of naval shipbuilding post-independence, and that is the strength which we are going to leverage for commercial shipbuilding in India. So sir, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Shishir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In line with the theme of the seminar or conclave today, I'll be talking about shipbuilding in India post-independence. I think I'm going to talk about something entirely different from what has been spoken so far by the eminent speakers, Dr. Sanjeev Ranjan and Commodore Agarwal. I'll be talking about something which has happened during our lifetime and not a historical perspective. So at the outset, I would like to thank the organizers, the RIS, the CMEC, and India Habitat Center for giving me this opportunity to speak on this topic. It's a very proud privilege for me to speak on this topic, as I worked for 16 years of my naval career on warship design and construction, and for the last 6.5 years I was the principal director of the Design Bureau, probably the longest serving PD in the history of the Bureau. So this is something of a history which I can talk about. And I'll cover my talk or presentation on these lines. I've structured in this form, and I'll be starting with the shipbuilding industry, a brief overview of or typicality of the shipbuilding industry, and the Indian shipbuilding evolution, the merchant shipbuilding, and then I will take on the historical perspective of warship acquisition and thereon. So this is just to depict that the shipbuilding industry is an industry of industries, which has an immense direct and indirect positive impact on almost all the other leading industries such as steel, PGD, propulsion systems, HVAC, electronics and controls, plumbing, cabling, habitability, IT, logistics, finance, etc. And the shipbuilding industry can be a major employment creator with relatively large spin-offs for Tier 1 and Tier 2 ancillary industries, and on a much larger scale than the automobile and other manufacturing industry. It is also known as a mother industry because of its multiplier effect on most manufacturing ancillary industry and on account of its large-scale employment generation potential. It has been an established fact that for the same turnover, the shipbuilding industry generates at least 3 times the employment generated by the automobile industry. Am I right, sir? Just a glance on the global shipbuilding leaders from British to US, Japan, Japanese, Koreans, and now China. So as we are aware, the manufacturing sector of a country has a very significant impact on the economic growth of the country. And if we glance through the history, we see that all these nations which evolved as major manufacturing hubs also evolved as major shipbuilding nations. Undoubtedly, the economic growth of these nations had direct correlation with the growth in output of the shipbuilding industry, which has a multiplier effect on direct and indirect employment and the development of associated industry. If we now look at the shipbuilding industry in India, it also witnessed a period of unprecedented growth, riding on the stimulus of global demand from 2003 onwards. A large number of shipyards, buoyed by possible business opportunities, made significant capital investments to scale up their infrastructure. This led to increase in market share of Indian yards in terms of global orders from 0.2% in 2002 to 1.2% in 2007, which was further projected to go up to 7.5% by 2017. However, the industry did not follow the growth path as projected. The global recession in 2008 led to large-scale cancellation of orders, and this, coupled with withdrawal of shipbuilding subsidies, led to a drastic slide in market share of Indian shipyards to a meager 0.1% by 2013. While subsequent to 2013, we could see some recoveries in shipbuilding order book of some of the other developing nations. However, our Indian shipyards could not catch up, and some of the major Indian shipyards that were appearing to have healthy growth potential during the shipbuilding boom went out of business. HSL, which was a very old and well-established shipyard with excellent infrastructure, went into red. It was inducted as a DPSU to revive her. The L&T, which was set up for merchant shipbuilding, turned her focus to naval shipbuilding and has somehow managed to survive. Pipavav, a very modern shipyard, which was recently established, also tried the same, but could not survive. Interestingly, some of the smaller nations like Philippines, Indonesia, Taiwan recovered and still continue to do well in the field of shipbuilding. This should force us to rethink and ponder on the probable steps that could be taken to revive the state of shipbuilding industry in India as well. The commercial shipbuilding demands efficiency and cost competitiveness of a very high order. If a nation excels in commercial shipbuilding by bolstering shipbuilding infrastructure and skilled manpower and enhancing the competitiveness and maturity of the local ecosystem, it can generate considerable collateral benefits for growth of naval shipbuilding also. Now I will come to the historical perspective of warship acquisition. In spite of India's glorious maritime heritage, there was no indigenous design or shipbuilding capability at the time of independence in 1947. We missed industrial revolution during colonial rule, and shipbuilding in India stagnated when the world was transiting from sailing ships to mechanized ships. Post-independence, in the 40s and 50s, most of the warships were borrowed or acquired from British government as part of Royal Indian Navy splitting into Indian Navy and Pakistan Navy. However, during the later decade, as India was pursuing neutralist policies, dependency on British acquired ships became more difficult. And after severing the British umbilical and then the apron strings during the mid-1960s, turning to other sources became essential. And during the 70s, many corvettes and destroyers were acquired from Russia to replace the aging warships borrowed from the British. The foresight of the naval leadership in late 50s and early 60s towards reducing the dependence on foreign countries for acquiring warships and to transform the Navy from a buyer's Navy to a builder's Navy led to the setting up of a small central design office by the Navy in 1964. A major impetus to the Indian Naval Design Organization came from the then Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi. She directed that the Naval Design Office should design frigates, submarines, and other fast craft with futuristic propulsion options, including nuclear. She emphasized the need for synergy between the ship designers and the shipbuilders, and this laid the foundation of self-reliance in warship design and production in the 1969 to 74 Defense Plan. This slide displays a historical picture of Srimati Indira Gandhi, the then Prime Minister, during the commissioning of the first Leander-class frigate built by MDL, INS Nilgiri. The genesis and the growth trajectory of the Navy's in-house design organization is depicted in this slide. The Central Design Office, set up by Navy in 1964, emerged as the Directorate of Naval Design in 1970 and formed the nucleus of all warship design activities in the country. Subsequently, the Design Directorate was upgraded to be headed by a Director General Naval Design in 1976. And the Submarine Design Group was also carved out from DND in the late 80s. From a humble beginning in 1964, The in-house design organization has grown into a renowned and widely acclaimed contemporary warship design bureau and is currently handling 5 major warship building projects, including the challenging guided missile destroyers, stealth frigates, multi-purpose corvettes, and the most challenging of all, the indigenous aircraft carrier, which has been commissioned in 2022. Now let us have a look at the indigenous warship building programs undertaken by the Design Bureau over the past 6 decades. This started with the building of some tugs, LCUs, and SDBs in 1960. We started indigenous production with the licensed production of Leanders in the 1960s, built to British design, and subsequently the CDO started a modest beginning with designing of these tugs, LCUs, and SDBs in 70s. And the design of the Sandhayak class survey vessels was one of the early creations from the drawing boards of the Nascent Directorate. During 81 to 2002, 8 ships of the class were built and commissioned, and these vessels were very critically required by the Indian Navy then to undertake coastal and deep oceanic hydrographical surveys and for collecting oceanographic and geographical data for production of navigational charts and publications of our own. Post-71 Indo-Pak War, Indian Navy was looking at weapons platforms that could provide enhanced capabilities based on lessons learned in the recently concluded war. The design of Godavari class frigates was the first significant indigenous warship design and development initiative of DND. The Project 16 required the design of a new hull form with integration of an altogether new weapons and control system suite. The hull form developed for the Godavari class boasted of a significantly longer hull compared to Leanders, with enhanced hydrodynamic performance and with the capability to accommodate advanced weapons and sensor suite. During 83 to 88, 3 ships of the class were built at MDL and commissioned as Godavari, Ganga, and Gomti. Based on the Sir Lancelot design, the Magar class LSTLs were one of the precious projects commenced during the Directorate's initial forays into major warship design. Equipped with a formidable arsenal, Magar class was designed with the capacity to transport up to 500 troops, 10 MBTs, and 11 trucks. And during 87 to 2009, 5 LSTs of the class were built and commissioned by the Navy. With an aim to provide a much heavier weapon and sensor suite than that of Leanders, a new corvette hull form was developed by the Directorate. The new hull form could pack substantially superior weapon suite at less than half of Leander's displacement. Additional capability of helicopter operations from such a platform was also incorporated. During 89 to 91, 4 ships of the class were built and commissioned as Kukri class, and subsequently 4 more ships of the same design but with advanced weapons and sensors were inducted as the Kora class. Project 15, the Delhi class guided missile destroyers, were the first ever gas turbine ships designed by the Indian Navy. These frontline weapon platforms were conceived with the capability of multi-strata warfare with weapons and sensor suite for air, surface, and subsurface roles. Successful design of Delhi class warships by the Design Directorate catapulted India among the select list of few nations with capability to indigenously design and construct such major combatants and destroyers. During 87 to 2001, 3 ships of the class were built and commissioned under Project 15 at MDL, namely Delhi, Mysore, and Mumbai. Designed and built for extended blue water naval operations, the Brahmaputra class of ships are capable of transiting 4,500 nautical miles without replenishment. These warships were the first to have indigenous combat data system integrated with a wide variety of state-of-the-art weapons and sensors of both foreign and Indian origin. The system gave a consolidated tactical picture, adding punch to the ship's maritime combat power. During 2000 to 2005, 3 ships of this class were commissioned as Brahmaputra, Betwa and Beas. The Project 17 Shivalik class ships are the first ever stealth frigate designed and built in India. In terms of design features, these ships have many firsts to their credit, like stealth features, Commodore propulsion, extensive automation through IMCS, APMS, CAIO, etc. The suppression of signatures is underwater radiated noise, the radar cross section, infrared exposure, magnetic visibility, etc., has made these warships more stealthy. The state-of-the-art weapons and sensor fit make these stealth frigates potent and capable to address any threat in all dimensions. The Design Bureau developed a strategic capability for stealth design of warships during this project, which has been honed further during subsequent projects towards design of contemporary stealth platforms. I had the proud privilege to steer the trials and commissioning of all the 3 ships of Shivalik class as the project director from 2010 to 2012. The design of the first indigenous ASW corvettes with very stringent stealth characteristics and packing a significant punch of ASW weapons and sensors on a compact platform was a major challenge, which was successfully handled by the Design Bureau with introduction of many new and innovative design features. I had the proud privilege to undertake major part of the design and model testing as a young commander. Subsequently, I also steered the trials and commissioning of the last 2 ships of the Commodore class as principal director of WDB. 4 ships of this class were built by GRSE. In fact, this was the first project which was built using the integrated high-strength steel, the DMR 249A. The Project 15 Alpha are stealth destroyer follow-ons of P-15 ships. The existing design of Delhi class was modified to fit indigenous weapons and sensors. The ship essentially were designed to incorporate features similar to Shivalik but have more firepower and much more sea legs. The 3 ships have been built and delivered as INS Kolkata, Kochi and Chennai. India is now a part of an elite group of 7 countries in the world that can design, build and operate indigenous aircraft carriers. This makes the IAC the most prestigious project that the Design Directorate has taken up so far. Amongst the key design evolutions, the hull form was developed in-house and detailed structural analysis was progressed with modern computing tools. Computational fluid dynamic tools and experimental techniques were extensively used to establish the flow patterns on the flight deck, which is very, very critical for an aircraft carrier. The first IAC built at CSL under Project 71 was commissioned by the Honorable PM on 22nd September 22, which is one of the most significant milestone achieved for the Indian Navy and the country. The successful commissioning of INS Vikrant, built with 76% indigenous content, right from the indigenous steel used for hull structure, signifies self-reliant India with remarkably raised level of technological competence. Now I will cover some more. Okay. Okay. So the 4 ships of. Right. Sir. So I'll run through the more recent projects. The Vishakhapatnam class destroyers. All the 4 ships have been built at MDL, and the last ship has been delivered and is due for commissioning tomorrow. And next is the Project 17 Alpha, the 7 ships of which are being made, the stealth frigate, follow-on of Shivalik class. Again, the first ship of this class has been delivered and this is ready for commissioning tomorrow morning by the Prime Minister. These are the 2 projects in progress at DND, WDB, and Next generation corvette is a completely new design project, and 17 Bravo is a follow-on project. These are at the pre-contract stage. And I would like to just make a proud mention that these are the two ships which are concurrently being commissioned tomorrow. These are major combatants which have been built by both by MDL, and both have been designed by the Warship Design Bureau, and they are concurrently being commissioned tomorrow along with the submarine of Scorpion class, which is a red letter day in the history of Indian Navy. To summarize the achievement, the Warship Design Bureau has produced 20 indigenous warship designs till date, and the delivery of 99 ships built to WDB design has been successfully steered by the Bureau. The next two slides cover the role of the WDB, which is the key enabler or the key driver for success in warship design and construction in the country. And the aim of this was to highlight that something similar to this is needed for giving impetus to the merchant shipbuilding in the country. We need to create an institution and organization who has the professional punch and the capability and the drive to drive the changes needed to give impetus to merchant shipbuilding in India. While we have achieved a lot in terms of warship building capability, but still there's a lot of run to be made. But however, that is linked to building up the overall shipbuilding capability in the country, and towards that the Warship Design Bureau conducted a seminar on nation building through shipbuilding in collaboration with FICCI in 2019, where we discussed all aspects and we brought out a lot of suggestions for improving the shipbuilding ecosystem and the shipbuilding in the country. And based on that, I have just shortlisted the short-term and medium-term measures. I will just go through them, and I'll just run through that and close with that, sir. So I think these are known and these are available in various papers and various fora. But however, what is required is the drive to get them implemented, and to bring up the shipbuilding industry in the country. The first is the formation of Apex National Authority on Shipping and Shipbuilding under PMO, because the biggest data is available with the PMO, I think, and that's what is required, I think. And the next is the financial support, because the shipbuilding needs a lot of funds, a lot of capital. It's a capital-intensive industry, and our ecosystem is not not very helpful for shipbuilding industry. The cost of funds, the taxes, everything is not very favorable. We need legislative action for fueling demand. We have to ensure that we have the Indian cargo sailing on Indian-built and Indian flag vessel. To generate the demand, we have to create institutions for growth of shipbuilding. We have to undertake benchmarking of shipyards, public-private partnerships, and strengthen the indigenous design houses and tap new demands. So these are the short-term measures, and there's a last slide on the medium and long-term measures. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you very much for a very patient hearing, and I'd like to thank the learned speakers for the fact that Professor Agarwal, Dr. Agarwal has been working on door design and has completed his PhD. The kind of depth of knowledge that he has on this, I think, calls for a full session, or rather we have a day-long session on things like this. Commodore Tiwari and his experience of recreating the shipbuilding ecosystem. I think the Indian Navy and the Design Bureau what the Britishers left us with was nothing. And starting from scratch, it's the Indian Navy of all the armed forces that we've been able to design our indigenous platforms and be able to manufacture them. That's a very commendable kind of a work which has been done. But the area being such, I suppose we got to have longer sessions on each of these themes. Shipbuilding by area is an interesting area, which I think is a challenge that we got to meet. I am sure we have taken longer than what was expected. So I hope, we don't have much time left for questions, I'm sure. People will be eager to go back home. Perfect, okay, we have a few questions then. Yeah, perfect, sorry, yeah.
Regarding the last speaker, you mentioned all varieties of this shipbuilding. Regarding the green factor, which is a current environment friendly, whether they are all equipped with the green friendly features, and the fuels or greenhouse gases, whether they are equipped with that. This is the one question.
Yeah, it was a historical perspective, and we have been talking about the ships which have been designed and built in the past, and of course the Navy is seized with this requirement, and we are working on the technologies for induction in warships, for taking care of this very important aspect also. But we have to be aware that the warships are meant for some purpose, and what is that purpose is to defend our maritime boundaries and maritime interests. So we have to draw a balance in that, and see that while the primary aim should not be lost in the pursuit of the green this thing.
I'll quickly answer that. The IMO, the International Maritime Organization, lays down the emission norms for various kinds of ships, which any manufacturer or any shipping company has to abide by. And Commodore Tiwari is more on the warship side of it. It's a question of national defense. Certainly it has to be environmental friendly, but we can't compromise the defense part of it. But as far as the merchant ships are concerned, the timelines are given, and that's a great opportunity for Indian shipping. If you're able to make greener ships, which the world is looking for, the digitization and greening of the shipping industry is a great opportunity where Indian shipbuilders are looking at, and smaller vessels, smaller boats, smaller designers are already in the fray, and we're able to compete with the best in the world. So that's a great opportunity that we got to get into to be able to capture global markets.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Ranjan.
I'll just put one part that in my research I found those are the most environmental friendly ships you can think of. There are three parts of a ship's life: the construction part, the running cycle, and the disposal finally, or when the ship is paid off. In all the three phases, there is nothing which is done against the environment, and even the oil, the lube oil which is left, which is dumped or has to be done as per MARPOL, the Gujarati ship owners use that also by mixing it with some other things and polishing the wood so that the wood doesn't absorb moisture. So that is the most friendly way of doing the shipping. I wish that industry also prospers.
No, but if we're able to bring the shipping, the emission standards which the IMO prescribes to levels which we are there before 1300, which is virtually emission free, we would again become the world leaders. We already are doing it.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Ranjan. Thanks, Commodore Agrawal, Commodore Tiwari. It was a great evening for us, fantastic treat. I think maybe we would have, as Dr. Ranjan rightly suggested, more longer sessions. I also congratulate CMEC and Commodore Shotria and his team for getting this very nice event organized, and thank all of you for your participation, and have a good evening. Thank you.